Once we get settled, we'll call on them. Then we will then turn to the closing remarks. And so we'll hear from, of course, from our government partners, Indigenous Services Canada and the Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Canada. And then we'll hear from the First Nations Leadership Council, and that will wrap up our formal sessions. Just to note that the open house is available here with all of the departmental branches and units until 4 o'clock. And so you're quite welcome to, again, do some final visiting as well. So, yep. And then we'll do some, what do we get?
Yeah, okay. May as well do a couple quick prize draws. I see some people still coming in from lunch. So very quickly, this is the last gift from the Indigenous Services Canada table for the folks who filled out the questionnaire, and it is a beautiful scarf. Can I get a drum roll? Nice. Wow. Nice, like, last day energy.
I think she's reading them.
No, there's a bunch in here with no information on them, so. Okay, I wasn't reading, I swear. Darlene Hall. Darlene, you are the happy winner of a beautiful scarf. And if Darlene is not in the room, we have her phone number, so we can get a hold of her and send her that scarf. Let's put our hands together for Darlene Hall. Okay, so 2 very quick draws from the big bowl. And these are for 2 of these prints which were donated by the All Nations Trust. Drum roll, please. Is it Marlene Christensen? Marlene Christensen from Tla'amin?
Marlene, are you in the house? Going once.
Okay. Tyrone Joseph, from All Nations Trust, who donated the gift. And I think they're gone, so. You can have it back. Stacy Johnson. Is Stacy Johnson in the room? Okay. Rhoda Gregg. Rhoda? You could have pretended to be Rhoda and I would have bought it. Just saying.
Rhoda has a 5 o'clock shadow.
Dallas George. He just left, hey? He was one of the youth. Too bad, Dallas. George William. George William. Loretta Billy. Loretta? Is it Zane Nayani from Kanaka? Or Kanak Bar? Zane, okay. Brian Mitchell, or Brian Michelle? Yeah? Woohoo! Congratulations, Brian. Beautiful print for you, and hopefully this is the last one. Johnny Moore from Nishka. Johnny?
Johnny No More.
Johnny No More. Good one, Harold. Keith Morgan. Is Keith Morgan in the house? Yeah. Will we take a rep? No, I hear some no's from the side. Geraldine Alexi from Lac-Willems. Geraldine? Okay, congratulations, Geraldine. So you can come on up and collect. Oh, Harold is going to bring you your prizes. So now we have the opportunity to hear from our wonderful panel of youth. They've been working hard over the last few days, like holy smokes. They had a working breakfast at 7:30 this morning. I think it was the only working breakfast, or one of the only working breakfasts of the week. You had the evening session with Minister Bennett last night. We've been keeping them very busy. And so Hilda Page is going to come up and open for them, and then I think we're going to hear from each of them in turn. So please put your hands together and give a very warm joint gathering welcome for our youth speakers.
Siem na sia siem na mistimoch, siem na salchwen, enta pet sal silamat, Anthapat Shaltanat, Tanitsan At Hinepsum. Respected friends, respected people, respected elders, my name is Hilda Page. My Halkamitnam names are Zalsi Lamat and Shaltanat. I come from the Hinepsum village of Cowichan tribes. The youth delegates would like to thank the host nations, Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, for hosting us on their ancestral lands and allowing for such important work to happen. We as youth delegates would also like to acknowledge the room, all of your hard work and your dedication and your service to the betterment of our nations, because without you, we would not be here.
OZM, us as youth, the past couple of days, we really appreciated the opportunity to do meet and greets with Minister Bennett and Chief Louis. We thought that it was a really good chance to engage in meaningful conversations with such influential leaders and to feel like we had our voices heard. Hi, Chika.
We stand together united, grateful for the opportunity to contribute and for a chance for the youth's voice to be heard during the day-to-day collaboration and debriefing on events held during this joint gathering. It left us inspired and motivated to be the future leaders we're meant to be.
As we shared our highlights, many of the youth loved being present in the plenaries and hearing information we need to know as your future leaders. In youth sessions, we were able to reflect on what was shared and learn of different opportunities and organizations to further our growth and bring back to share with the youth in our community. Now, some of my other delegates have composed some of our recommendations for moving forward.
Yo, Skukum Dumanits. I guess one of my recommendations was more opportunities to discuss issues surrounding Indigenous law and languages, and also a invite to ancestral governance projects. I'm here on behalf of Nukhalk Ancestral Governance, and so I feel like that's a really important issue to sort of discuss where Indigenous law gathers its strengths, and that would be my recommendation for the future. Why?
I'm gonna be on the side, that's where I'm reading from. Okay, so we have a couple other. My name is Jamie, I'm from Tlazan and Nakazli Watan. Yeah, you can start.
Hi, I'm Letitia Accident, and I'm from Kispiox, BC. I belong to the Gitxsan Nation. One of the recommendations that we had was a section in the main room specifically for youth, the youth delegates to all sit together. That way, during discussions and all of the panels that they have, that we as youth can kind of connect and ask each other questions and discuss what is being said. And rather than having to interrupt and feeling a little bit intimidated by the people that we are sitting with. Whereas if we are in our own little section, we can network and get to know one another. But yeah.
Another recommendation to the organization and planning of the joint gathering was youth being involved in the planning specifically, but also planning the session. So a lot of us felt, as we were really grateful to have youth time in the specific rooms in the Mackenzie room, we also wanted to be a part of other plenaries and other sessions that we felt we really want to get to know more about, but we also want to be in this. So it was like a push and pull with other sessions. So that was one of our main ones. And a really good, informative recommendation was to have a better networking base, other than just the table, which was a really good one being here, but a networking base amongst all of us where we all get to know each other, but we don't want to lose that connection. We are going to be your leaders of tomorrow and future, so we would like to stay connected somehow. And we want to be able to discuss solutions and problems, what is working and what's not working in our communities, and how that can help everyone else amongst BC or Canada. We felt that was really important because we don't want to lose connection, and we want to also be informative and also, yeah, network. Better networking connection, yeah. Yeah.
I did forget my second one, but we were wanting to do more advertising for youth delegates. I didn't exactly know who or which other people within this room were actually here to represent the youth of our communities and nations. So a little more advertising and possibly like, icebreakers that could possibly help us introduce ourselves to each other, and which brings us back to the little section for the youth to all sit together, right? But yeah, that's...
Starting tomorrow, you should all be advertising for your youth to come here next year. So let's start there. But yeah, thank you.
White Huskahalt is squeeze chikakstkam, Sama squeeze Ryan Oliverius. Hello, good day everyone. My Okanagan name is Thunder. My English name is Ryan Oliverius. To end, we'd like to say thank you to all the purple shirts and the organizers of this event. Limlimt, thank you.
Hello, Curtis Gallup, the Tahltan Nation. I would like to thank all the purple shirts and red shirts. Thank you.
Haitsa CM.
OCM.
Gela Kasla.
Merci et miigwech.
Stutwini duch, smedam chooks, stadaldam, squilchach dusts, Stutwini duch, manakai salatai wak stuch. Thank you, friends and relatives, chiefs, elders, and thank you, Creator, for all that you do. Way.
Masicho to everyone who came today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hatmiani'i.
Nice job. Holy smokes. I think that was the most cohesive, well-organized, time-sensitive, strategic panel of the whole 3 days. Let's put our hands together for them one more time. 10 speakers, 10 minutes, impactful. You're giving us a challenge to take up for next year. Very well done, very well done. What a beautiful way to sort of transition us into our afternoon here. I'm not a hockey fan, Harold. I'll let you introduce that part. We are going to quickly do 2 more prize draws just because we have a couple more people in the room. And I've also been asked to mention that Jamie asked me to mention that the chief from her community, Naut'sa Woten, had a handout on the Shovel Lake fire that was meant to be handed out during the session on emergency management. And so there are several beautiful copies up here. And if anyone would like a copy of this document, please feel free to come up to the stage and grab one before you leave today. Okay.
Back in? I just want to check. Do we put those back in?
I put the ones back in that weren't.
These were on the stage, so just...
Oh, no. Okay. So these again are for the final 2 prints from All Nations Trust. See a couple more people coming in with their coffee cups. Okay. We have Joe Derrick. Is Joe in the room? Joe? Okay. How about Andy Tom Sr.? Andy Tom Sr.? Here we go. Let's put our hands together for Andy Tom Sr. And Jennifer Luby. Jennifer L. Yeah? Is that you? Not very convincing, but last prize winner of the day. Congratulations, Jennifer. Could we put our hands together one more time for all the prize winners? And also, again, a huge thank you to all the folks that donated door prizes. Okay, so Harold has lined something special up for us just before we go to our closing comments.
Okay. Yeah, a bit of a transition, so we'll ask our closing speakers to get ready. But last night at the hockey game, sort of just acknowledging our presence on the territory and sort of our contribution to the country, there was a brief ceremony, and I have asked them to just show us that.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we play hockey upon the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. The three nations happy to share the land in the belief of the spirit of sport. The drums welcome, bless, and cleanse the ice, creating good spirits. We are now honored to introduce distinguished guests. From the Musqueam Nation, Chief Wayne Sparrow. From the Squamish Nation, Councilmember Kristen Rivers. And from the Tsleil-Waututh Nation, Councilor Jen Thomas. Ladies and gentlemen, we are thrilled to have with us the very first Indigenous player to play in the NHL. An inspiration that generations have followed, Fred Sasaskamus. Finally, please welcome one of the most popular Canucks of all time, who has devoted his post-playing days to helping all First Nations people, Gino Ojek. Would Bo Horvat and Justin Williams please come to center ice for a ceremonial face-off? Thank you, Bo and Justin. Thank you, Chief Wayne Sparrow, Councilor Jen Thomas, and Council Member Kristen Rivers. Thank you, Fred Saskamoose and Gino Ojek.
Nice. Thanks for organizing that for us, Harold. Let's put our hands together for all the folks that were up on stage or on ice last night. You know, it wasn't too long ago that we had Minister Bennett video conferencing in before she made a live appearance. So you never know. We see someone on video conference one year. Maybe we can get them here in person in the future. Thank you all for being here on the last afternoon, day 3 of the 2019 joint gathering. Thank you so much for your energy, your commitment, your participation, your respect to the speakers, your thoughtful questions, and the hard work that you do in communities. We're moving now into closing comments, but I just really want to take a moment to acknowledge you and the fact that you are still here taking in as much information as you can, knowing that every scrap of information, every connection made, every opportunity pursued means a better life for your community members at home. And you need to be commended for that work in this room, but always in the role that you play in your community. So could we put our hands together just for the delegates in the room, just in appreciation? So as I mentioned, we now have the pleasure of hearing closing comments from our co-hosts. And so we're going to begin closing comments by hearing from our wonderful Associate Regional Director General from the BC Region Indigenous Services Canada, Bill Guerin. Please put your hands together for Mr. Guerin.
Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to start by acknowledging and recognizing the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh that we've been doing our work on for the last couple of days. I'd also like to acknowledge Elder Larry Grant and Alec Dan for their words and their song this morning. It's always good to start our days that way. A big thank you to the executive of the Leadership Council, to the staff in their organizations, to the staff in Indigenous Services Canada and CERNA. It's their tireless efforts that allow this to happen. It doesn't happen without the hours and hours of work and effort that they put into this. I think people have heard it's the 7th joint gathering. We've done these in different iterations over the years. It used to be a joint policy and planning forum. It morphed into the joint gathering. If we look back to 2012, we had about 170 people come. If we look around the room today, we've got upwards of 550 people from over 150 First Nations. It's become an incredible event. That year after year, it just seems to get better and keep on growing. So, I don't know where we take it next year. It's hard to imagine. Every year we think we've climbed as high as we can in this, and every year we seem to go a little bit higher. It's the first time we've had 2 ministers here. We're also fortunate to have the National Chief back again. We've got several assistant deputy ministers from our department, Indigenous Services and CERNA, our chief financial officer. We've got staff from Indigenous Services Canada from across the country that have come to see what we're doing and learn what they can and see what they can take back to their own regions. It's incredible. As in every year, I find it an incredibly enriching experience. We cover a diverse range of topics. It's child and family services, it's languages, new fiscal relationship, education, economic development. It goes on and on. Each and every one of them is important, but I think what really strikes me is how it's evolved over the years. When we started, it was very operational. It was very focused on programs and policies. And I think one of the biggest changes I've noticed over the years now is that it's a lot more inclusive of the foundational elements of wellness in our communities. It's languages, it's culture, it's how everything comes together in a holistic manner, and what we can do to collectively improve the lives of all our people living on reserve and off reserve. So to me, that's probably the biggest change I've noted over the years. As in past years, we will put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard, I guess, to bring it into 2019 and produce a summary report. But I think we've heard loud and clear about the need to maintain momentum, about the need for action, not to listen, don't sit back, don't take your foot off the pedal. It's go, go, go. So we'll continue to do that. And it was also reinforced for us that we really need to focus on relationship. And, it's going to be a constant in everything we do. It always has been, and I think it always will be. So rest assured that those are things that we'll continue to focus on. I think back to Minister O'Regan and his request that everybody hold his feet to the fire, and I think that the same applies true for both of our departments as well at ISK and CERNA. Don't ever let up on us. Hold our feet to the fire as well, and make sure that we provide you the service that you need in a timely manner, the way you want it, ideally in your communities. We can't always be there, but certainly it's a priority of ours to get our staff out to your communities as often as possible. I really want to acknowledge the youth and the elders and thank them for their contributions. I was just telling people over lunch that I can hardly wait to retire, give it a couple of years, and to come back as an elder. You know, because then I can participate in that program. And for back-to-back years, I think they've had the most incredible program. They have the most fun. They do meet and greets. They contribute to policy. It's phenomenal, their participation, just how gung-ho they are. And I think they really keep us grounded as well. And they force us to remember what we're all doing here collectively. I'd also like to acknowledge the Union of BC Indian Chiefs and their 50th anniversary. Always had a soft spot for the organization. My dad was executive director for them back in the 70s. And Grand Chief Stewart, I've got a booklet from the 70s. I think it's volume 1, edition 1 of a publication the union put out. So when you're in your office, you'll have to, or our office, you'll have to pop by and I'll share it with you. Probably I'll end up gifting it to you guys and you can keep it over in your offices and I'll just keep a copy of it because really it is, you know, it takes me back, but it's just heartwarming to see how far things have come, you know, since I was a kid. I'd also like to acknowledge Grand Chief Ed John and certainly his work on languages, you know, 2019 being the year of Indigenous languages. You know, it's phenomenal, the international attention and recognition that the importance languages has. But I think most of all, I want to thank and acknowledge each and every person in the room. It's your contributions, it's your willingness to share, it's you taking time out of your busy lives and schedules and coming down here to participate and share your best practices with each other, to help inform and educate us in the government side as to what we need to do to be able to serve your communities. And it's because of your contributions that this is such a rich and valuable event. So thank you. I'll put my hands together for all of you, but by all means, put your hands together for yourselves as well. You know, on a lot of fronts, BC is really a unique and a progressive you know, region of the country. So much happens in BC that originates here that then gets carried on across the country. And I think joint gathering is just another one of those examples. We're going to look back and say, well, I remember when only BC region did that. And I think you'll find, you know, 10 years down the road, every region's going to be doing something very similar. Jesse already gave a reminder about the open house. So, yeah, by all means, stick around, talk to staff that are there. I'd also like to put a plug in for the Listen to What Has Been Shared initiative that our staff have created. It's an employee-driven initiative, and it was really created to raise the cultural awareness and competence of our staff. And they thought, how can we do it? How can we learn about the communities? And they created an initiative to have First Nations tell us about your people, your communities, your history, and to share your stories with us. So it's just over in the Mackenzie room, I think. If you haven't ever contributed a story, by all means, pop by and contribute one, or feel free to pop into our office and contribute a story there. We've got it set up in one of the boardrooms right beside reception. And in closing, I think I'd just like to acknowledge and thank Jesse and Harold as well. Once again, they've done a fabulous job of, you know, moderating the panels, chairing the event, and really they're instrumental to our success as well. As just one of a number of speakers here, I think I'll keep my remarks at that. I just want to sincerely thank everybody for coming and for participating. Thank you very much. Hitchka OCM.
Thank you very much, Bill. I really appreciate that. And let us then turn to the Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Canada. Of course, we are joined once again by the Senior Assistant Deputy Minister for Treaties and Aboriginal Government. Please help me welcome back Joe Wild.
Good afternoon, elders, chiefs, councillors, leaders, guests, delegates. Also want to acknowledge, recognize, and thank the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish people for allowing us to have gathered on their lands these last 3 days for this amazing conference and event. I do want to start by just really thanking everybody for participating. I know these, at least I found, I mean, it's a grueling, exhausting pace to do everything, I think, and try to cover everything at this kind of an event. And I do think that, you know, it's been an amazing 3 days of contributions, of dialogue, of questions, some challenging, and that's good. I think as the ministers spoke about when they gave their speeches yesterday, you know, we're here to hear, and we need to hear from you, and we need to know what's working, what's not working, and hopefully we'll continue to find ways in which we can work together to make progress. I do want to really extend a huge thanks and acknowledgement to both Harold and Jesse. You guys have done an amazing job. I think it's incredible how you've managed to actually keep us on time, to be able to get in as much input as possible from the audience, even though I know on my own panel I did it the first, we ran way too long and didn't have enough time for a good Q&A, but I do really think you guys have done an amazing job in holding everything together. And as Bill mentioned, you know, this doesn't happen without like just hundreds, if not thousands of person hours that have been put in from volunteers, from the departments. There's again, like I think nothing, there's not enough words to express the appreciation for all of the effort they put in to make sure that everything works as it should and that we're able to hold an amazing event. And last, I want to thank all of the members of the First Nations Leadership Council for co-hosting this event with us. I think it's important that we're doing this together. It's important that we develop these agendas, these topics, these themes together. We want this to be, you know, as much about you as it is about us, and importantly, it really should be about our relationship together. And I think that's one of the things that we have been able to hopefully hit a good balance on over the last 3 days. I think as Bill mentioned, you know, in terms of like some themes that come out for me based on the last 3 days, momentum, maintaining the momentum, keeping progress going. You know, this is not the time for resetting. This is the time for charging ahead on all kinds of things that have already been in train. I know we're all feeling, I think, the pressure. As we say, there's a democratic event coming at the federal level. We all feel the pressure of that, and we know there's a lot of things we want to accomplish prior to the election. I think, you know, it's, again, as been said so many times, there is a truly unique opportunity in British Columbia to work in a truly tripartite way with the province, Canada, and First Nations to see what we can do to address not only the implementation of self-determination, but, you know, as I've been reminded throughout, the core of all of that, the foundation of self-determination stems from being able to recognize and implement title. And I am hopeful that we are in a place at a time where over the next couple of months, we're going to be able to set ourselves a policy approach within the Government of Canada and the province that will enable us to drive forward on having a mechanism, a process to be able to start moving forward on actually recognizing and implementing title in this province. I think it will be a beacon for the rest of the country. I think it'll be a beacon for the world when we do this. And I think, again, like one thing that I constantly am reminded of is, you know, we're actually getting to have these conversations. This is not something that was necessarily happening, you know, in the not too distant past. And they're going to be hard conversations, I have no doubt. I hope that we have done, you know, a sufficient work, and I know it's never really sufficient, but I hope that we have done sufficient work in order to be able to establish a good, productive working relationship that we're going to be able to get to the conversations we need to have and to come up with the mechanisms on how we're going to move forward. We want to work with you to develop those. This is not going to be obviously about us. This ultimately is about the things that we need to do to clear, as my minister likes to say, for us to get out of the way, to clear the barriers. And, you know, we need to work out how our jurisdictions are going to interface. What is our relationship going to look like nation to nation, government to government? So there's much work to be done. I think a lot of the conversations we have had over the last couple of days are you know, good reminders and starting points of work to come. And at least we heard from, I think, a few folks. I want to highlight in particular Tanya Corbett's presentation at Tuasin, that there are ways in which we can do things together that will help to transform our relationship, and that why that matters is that it's not just about transforming our relationship for the sake of our relationship, it's the impact that can have on Indigenous people's lives in their communities. And I think about the powerful example of Tuasin being able to use the economic opportunities and the way in which our treaty relationship enabled them to help take advantage of some of those opportunities so that they are able to be in a place today where they could talk about having zero unemployment. And I think even more compelling for me was the relationship they've developed with police and able to have no criminal charges amongst youth. So there's lessons, there's lots of lessons. And it's not to say that, in those lessons it means that's the way. It just means that there's things that we can look upon, draw upon, and then see whether or not that works elsewhere, figure out how to tailor things to meet community needs. We heard stories from the Northern Secwepemc, the NSTQ, the Stikine, the Cowichan tribes, how they're using nation-based family-focused approaches to keep kids in their communities. We talked a lot about child and family. We talked a lot about the important role of matriarchs, the importance of culture, the importance of language, the importance of being connected to the land, which all goes back again to getting to a place where we have an appropriate approach for the recognition and implementation of title. We need to get to these things because at the end of the day, this is what's going to help kids. It's what's going to help Indigenous peoples to be connected to their culture and language. It helps for reminding the rest of Canada that this is a very important thing that we want to do, that we want to help, that we want to enable, we want to be partners in. I think that, the last thing I would kind of note in terms of some of the themes that came out is, we need to do a better job in the Government of Canada. I'm not surprised at that theme. There's nothing, new in that, in the sense that we're always going to strive to do better. We're always going to strive to improve. We have taken some steps. I mentioned the collaborative fiscal policy the other day. I do think that was a watershed transformative approach that should become a model for how we do a lot of policy work going forward. We had the work that we started on recognition legislation, and I want to reemphasize that, at least in my view, that is not on the shelf. That is a piece of work that we will continue to turn to and work with, and we will find ways in which to move forward what needs to be done in policy and what eventually we will need to be able to do in legislation. We have years of entrenched practices and culture within the Government of Canada. We know we need to transform those. We know that that change takes time. We're all frustrated with the pace at which that change is happening. So your voices are important to continue to hold our feet to the fire, to ensure that we are walking the talk, which is definitely a theme that I think came out through the 3 days as well. And it's not just about Indigenous services or Crown Indigenous relations, it's about a whole of government, it's about other government departments as well. And so we will continue to do work with the Cabinet Committee on Reconciliation, the Deputy Minister's Task Force on Reconciliation, the Federal Steering Committee of Assistant Deputy Ministers that I chair, to ensure that we are putting real action behind the Prime Minister's words. We have an obligation in the public service to deliver on this agenda that the government has put forth. We have not been able to, I would say, accomplish everything we wanted to. We have, a certain amount of time left in order to drive further change forward, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you to be able to do that. So I just want to close by saying again that I found the last 3 days to be incredibly valuable, exhausting, but valuable. And I'm very much honored that we at Crown Indigenous Relations were able to play, I would say the largest role we've ever played at this gathering over the last 3 days. And I look forward to continuing to participate in future events. And I know certainly my team does as well. And just thank you all again for your participation, your comments, your questions, your answers. I realize maybe not every answer that was given to every question is satisfactory for everybody, but I hope that it's the start of dialogue and that we can continue to have those discussions in the future. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wild. Exhausting but valuable probably describes how most of us feel about a lot of the work we're doing on a daily basis, and certainly the joint gathering qualifies as well. We turn now to closing comments from the First Nations Leadership Council, starting with Chief Harvey McLeod, Board Director for the BC Assembly of First Nations. Please join me in welcoming Chief McLeod to the stage.
Good day, my friends and relatives. As in a lot of our work sessions that we conduct across this great province of British Columbia, we do a lot of that work in this territory, the unceded territories of our relatives, Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, and Squamish. And we thank them for hosting us and allowing all of this important work to happen in their homelands. We want to acknowledge our elders and our people that started us out in a good way over the last 3 mornings. Alec Dan and Elder Larry Grant from Musqueam Nation for the words and the setting of the stage this morning. Les George and Elder Sam George on 2 days ago, and yesterday Elder Bob Baker. It's really important, the work that they perform and do for us, to allow us to focus, to settle in, and to be encouraged and to participate in the many discussions that occurred during that day. My name is Harvey McLeod, El Michum Chief for Upper Nicola Band, the Okanagan Nation, and one of 5 directors that support the work of our BCFN Regional Chief, Terry Teegee. A lot of work, but good work. We want to thank everyone for participating in the many discussions that we've had over the past 3 days. I want to acknowledge and thank our youth. It was so encouraging to hear them, to hear their voice, to see the hope and wanting inclusion in the work that we do as leaders and as communities. Their voice is so important. And also of equal importance is the voice and messaging from our elders. The ones who have been here before, the ones who have earned the respect and the knowledge of life lived in our communities. We've heard many messages over the last 3 days. Self-determination as a reality. What is that? You know, and a lot of us in this room have spent a lifetime at them dialogue tables, wanting to see and be acknowledged, and for us to have an opportunity to really take care of ourselves, to form our own law, and to be accountable to our relatives and, more importantly, to our Timuch, our land. Looking for and finding ways to build partnership, capacity for that work to happen. We have, over the decades, looked to the federal crown, the provincial crowns, for the answers and the supports that we needed to stand up. And over the last decade, we've seen our people say enough is enough. And now it's our turn. Here's my hope. Here's my dream. And what can we do together to make that dream a reality? And it's so encouraging to see our people in our communities rise up and say, I want to be a part of that. I want to do something to support the work of our leadership that have spent a lifetime over the last century to make change, for us to be involved and included in the work that happens in this country. And transforming the foundations on which we stand. And that goes again to what we're seeing today. We had so many moving parts. Leaders doing this, leaders doing that. Programs coming in, programs going out. But we never really had a solid foundation to stand on. And we're seeing that now. I'm seeing that in my community. For example, the yayas, the grandmas in our community, saying that we're going to be responsible for our children and our families. Give us that responsibility. And with that statement, we have something to stand on. And it's going to form and allow us to do so many different things in our community because of that. And they're going to show us how we can get that work done. We've shared many things over the last 3 days. What's working and not working. Where we'd like to go and how we'd like to get there. And how we're implementing inherent rights. What that's going to look like. And the efforts and the understanding that we're going to have to instill in ourselves to make that happen. And I see that there is a willingness across this province and across the nation for that to happen. We've heard about rights-based frameworks and new fiscal relationships, new ways of supporting the work that we're doing in our communities, a new way of allowing us to plan into the future instead of surviving for today, but planning for our future. And the work that's happening in the new fiscal relationship is going to allow some of us to do that. We don't want to survive from day to day anymore. We want to plan our way out so that we are self-sustaining and have the capacity to take care of ourselves. Thank you to the many leaders and representatives that we've entrusted to give voice to the work that you're doing. These are the things that we're doing in our communities. These are the new ways of doing business to ensure that our families and our communities are safe, that we have a healthy, safe community. I want to acknowledge Assembly of First Nations National Chief Perry for attending and giving us a really detailed report on his activities and how he's busy doing the work that we as leaders across Canada have entrusted him to do. And that is a lot of work. And that means that here at home, we have to be doing the same. And we are seeing that. It was really good to hear our ministers Bennett and Seamus O'Regan, share. Over the last 4 years or so, I've heard from Minister Bennett. But I think it's the first time that I've seen where there's some compassion, there's some heart into the words and the work that she does on our behalf at federal government level. It was good to meet the new minister, Seamus, yesterday, and to hear that he's going to be hitting the road running, because he does have a full load of work that he has to carry out by his predecessor, and that has to be carried out this spring and this summer to ensure that the work and efforts that we had and we've developed in partnership over the last 4 or 5 years is brought to reality. The work on children and families, the work on the languages. 2 areas that we can't lose focus and we have to ensure is passed by the federal crowns. We've heard many times in the rooms, the breakout sessions, and in this room, that there is real opportunity in tomorrow. A real opportunity for us to grasp onto our future and to make that a reality. There wasn't too many times in the last decade that I could see that, yes, we are close to having something good come out of the work that we do. We've been on survival mode, hanging onto the coattails of our leaders across this country to carry us. But now we can see, and we can see how we fit into the equation and the work that we have to do to make that hope and them dreams become a reality. We will continue to hold the Government of Canada and the province of British Columbia accountable. They hold many of the restrictions that we have to change so that we can become who we are. Looking at the children and family legislation right now, we've been talking about that for a long time, and now it's a reality. It's right there. And it's going to be one of the few things on our agenda that we're hoping and continuing to pray for that will be given back to us so that we can rebuild our families and our community. We know that we're going to be challenged. There's many challenges, even in my own community, about how this work is carried out. But because of the work that's done in rooms like this, us sharing our successes, that I learn and we learn on how we can get it done better. So I'm encouraged by what I've seen and what I've heard over the last 3 days. Yes, some good things. Yes, some areas are going to need a lot more work and a lot more effort and a lot more understanding, but we are close. The discussions that I had last night with Minister O'Regan was that, yes, we have a lot on our plate, but there's something that you have to understand, Minister, is that I got to know who you are and you got to know who I am. Once you understand who I am and know who I am, then you'll have a better understanding of the needs that we bring forth for consideration. Many thanks to the many organizers that put in countless hours making this 3-day event a success. Thank Harold and Jesse for guiding us. And to ask that you have and wish that you have a safe trip home. We've spent many hours, and yes, it is very tiring. So take care of yourself on your way home. So on behalf of Regional Chief Terry Teegee, BC Assembly of First Nations, thank you for the opportunity to participate here this week. So with that, White Limnit.
Thank you very much for that, Chief McLeod. We now turn to the First Nations Summit, and the leadership within that is called the Political Task Group, and so please help me welcome a member of their political executive, Robert Phillips.
Wait, Chukwinuk, as mentioned, Robert Phillips. And do you have my PowerPoint ready? Is it ready? Just fooling with those guys. So I'll give acknowledgements as well to Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, and Squamish, and certainly give acknowledgements as well to my colleagues in Leadership Council and the chiefing councils and hereditary chiefs, all the people that have been working in behind the scenes, as well as the ministers that attended. And I've seen some BC ministers that showed up, as well as the senior officials that are here, and especially to our administrations and First Nations people and staff that are in attendance. I think just the fact that after you've eaten and you've stayed shows your commitment. So I think that's something that really is appreciated. And as well, thanks to the elders for the welcoming. Thanks for the elders for their prayers. It goes a long way, because it not only does it ground us, but it puts us in that peace of mind, that one state of togetherness. Appreciate all the work that we've been doing, and as always, I do believe and I say that this is a time of opportunity, and the Prime Minister himself stated it, that he wants things in place by June. And we've been having a lot of discussions in terms of legislation, and it's been talked about in the last few days. But policies as well is very important. And I say that because as staff and as administration, I know, and Alana reminds me of this all the time, and same thing with Yvonne Smith at the Tribal Council, that we follow a policy and procedure. And I think that's really important. And you know that better than we do. And as politicians or political people, we get up and we make statements all the time, but we have to follow through in that. And that's based on our own principles and based on our own laws, and that we're redeveloping. That's been there for thousands of years, but now we have to bring out and show the way that we need to go forward. So it's about jurisdiction, it's about authority. And I was running in between meetings, and Chief Dan George had the housing, and that's important because, again, you need a place to live. We've been through so much of uncertainty, and you know, it was very difficult. There's no prosperity in our communities in a lot of cases. And then I was racing to another meeting with the ADM in regards to employment skills and training. And again, because we need the jobs that are in our communities. We get up here, and I remember talking to an elder and stating, you know, we need our rights recognized, our Aboriginal title. And the elder said, we have Aboriginal title. It's only Canada that needs to recognize it, and then we need to implement it. And I said, oh, we need Section 35 lands, no more Section 92. And I was going on and on. I said, this is our land. And now we have to convince Canada and British Columbia especially that it's time to share in the richness and the resources of the land. So we've been very patient. And when Seamus mentioned that yesterday about impatience, I said, we're ready. And then when the Prime Minister stated we wanted work done in the next 6 months, we're ready. We're prepared. We've done document after document after document, and it's all there, and it's all laid out, and we just need to do that and get that work underway. So when I hear there's $17 billion available, when I hear there's $1.1 billion available, and then I hear a minister who's saying she's going to get out of the way? Let's join the dots there and put that together. So I'm thinking, yeah, let's just talk to the new president of the Treasury Board, and let's get that money directly into our communities. I think that would be a darn good start. So I don't want to go on. I know people have to travel. And one of the other things that, because we talked about gaming a lot, and now we're just finally getting gaming in British Columbia. And I was very happy to hear the national chief when he talked about a percentage of the gross domestic product, GDP. And I think that's the way to go. And I know that we're talking about transfers and we're talking about new fiscal arrangements, but the sharing of the resources that come from our traditional territories. So that not only will we see employment, skills, and training, not only will we see economic development, because there's a lot of good examples out there in economic development on the island and in Okanagan, throughout British Columbia, but they seem to be here and there, and there's many communities in between. And I think if we have prosperity in First Nation communities, that would mean prosperity for rural BC, for the north, for the south, the coast, the interior, and Vancouver Island. I think that's the way to go. And just getting back to all the agreements, and I know that a lot of times we have political agreements and throughout the province, and that being, and we heard some of them, the Nisga'a Treaty, or the Tla'amin, or all the treaties that are happening, but also to remember the agreements and other constructive arrangements. So that's why now we see, for example, what's going on in the last 20 or 30 years now at Seashot, and what we see at West Bank, and all of these now being available to our communities, and the other constructive arrangements that need to be done. But I can't help but think of all the positives that are out there, and if we work together. And I was thinking of Chris Lewis the other day, because I think I remember him saying, especially with the three nations here, it's better to have 1/3 of something than 100% of nothing. And then finally, one of my last comments, I was sitting with the Grand Chief and Stuart, and he was saying along the lines, Canada has to invest. And I was going to get up here and I was going to have a big rant about invest, invest, invest. And I think that's important because, you know, I think, I don't want to steal any of your speech there, but he did talk about a lot of times programs and services almost like maintenance. And I think, I can't help but think of the Okanagan First Nation and all the work that they're doing there as well, and the other nations that are doing very well. But if we have it across the board in British Columbia, I think that would mean something not only for our nations, but as well for the surrounding communities. So with that said, safe travels. Thanks everybody for working hard, and we're looking forward to next year. Cookstown.
Thank you very much, Mr. Phillips. This takes us to our final speaker with closing comments, of course, Grand Chief Stuart Phillip on behalf of the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. Please put your hands together for the Grand Chief.
Why, East-West Aimshin. I'd like to thank my relatives from the Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, and Squamish for the opportunity to address you here. And don't worry, I'll save the best for last. I hadn't originally planned on being here, but I was fortunate that I have. I was recalling a statement that was made by my grandpa, Dan George, back in 1967, and he lamented the fact that we had our authority taken from us. And of course, I got imported into the Okanagan, and one of the elders there said that our rights and title are like a pie. We had it taken away from us. But he says we can take it back one slice at a time. And I really have to applaud the leadership in British Columbia, because that's what we're doing. We're taking back our authority one slice at a time. I was particularly pleased with the announcement about the issues with respect to children and family issues. Because my mom was a social worker, and she said that number one, that we were big business when it comes to the province, and that the only way that we're going to become the authority is to develop that Children and Family Welfare Act at the federal level, where we take back that authority for looking after our children, because the province, number one, isn't equipped, and they're only obligated to protect the children. They're not obligated to help the family stay together. So she said it was like a double-edged sword. But I'm just so pleased that this has become such a valuable networking forum and way of sharing and ensuring that we become more sovereign. Thank you. White Limnum. There you go.
Wai Peace Naxil Esquis Asiut. I want to begin by, I was asking them to put a picture up, but I don't know what happened to it. Yes, there it is. First of all, I want to acknowledge Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam. It's always such an honor to be on their collective territories. They're such amazing hosts, and to hear the wisdom of their elders and their songs, and to witness the strength of their culture is always such a uplifting experience. So I want to acknowledge them, and of course Joan's from Tsleil-Waututh, so that's why I mentioned it first. I want to begin my remarks by acknowledging and recognizing those that have come before us. Quite often we think we got here on our own, and or during our own personal experiences and involvement in leadership roles. But we know that that's not true. As An Chut used to say, periodically we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors. We stand on the shoulders of that greatness, those leaders that have come before us, those leaders that stood up in the face of incredible adversity. They did not have the UN Declaration or any of the Supreme Court decisions. What they had was an absolutely strong belief, an unwavering belief in their hearts that we do indeed own these lands, and that we have a responsibility to protect and to caretake what the Creator has gifted our respective nations. And there wasn't a sliver of a doubt in their minds. And they stood tall. And it was those people, those courageous individuals, that have brought us to this place that we are here today. And I've had the privilege and honor of being involved in this struggle for a very long time. I'm grateful that the struggle, the movement is what brought Joan and I together over 40 years ago. We were two young people that had that same fire within ourselves, that we had to stand up and we had to push back on the oppression and the repression of the various levels of government and speak out against the racism and the internal violence in our communities. And, you know, after a little eye talk across the rally crowd there, and, you know, we got together and we realized that we shared the same views and the same passion, and we've been together ever since. And we've raised our children and now our grandchildren in the middle of this struggle. And I'm really proud to say that our now 5 children, adult children, and our 15 grandchildren know and understand the battle lines in this struggle. And, you know, I'm really proud of that. They've been to so many different rallies and marches and celebrations and things of that nature. You all know in this room that we lost our son in August to the opioid crisis. And I used to stand up here and say we have 6 adult children. And now, you know, I have to admit we only have 5. But nonetheless, I just wanted to acknowledge those that have come before us. I remember, like it was yesterday, although it was almost 14 years ago, that the Union of BC Indian Chiefs, the First Nations Summit, and the BCAFN made that momentous decision to stop fighting with each other, to set aside our political and petty differences, and to commit in a ceremony to work together for the, you know, for the well-being of our children and families. And that was March the 17th, 2005. And in those early days, it was really interesting. Because we had pretty much been at war for all of that time. But we've forged some very, very strong personal relationships since that time. We've been all over the country together, and we've kept our focus on why we came together. And it's an amazing experience to sit in this room after initiating these joint gatherings several years ago, and to feel that sense of accomplishment. Because in the beginning, when the joint gathering first came together, it wasn't the same atmosphere, the same environment, the same vibe as we experienced in the last 3 days. You know, we were really attacking the department and whatnot. And I want to acknowledge Bill Guerin, because that was an amazing set of remarks he got up here and delivered. And Bill has always been that quiet person in the background, but I was amazed. And as I sat there and listened to him deliver those amazing remarks, I thought, if you put a suit on him, it was very ministerial. But to hear the progress that we've achieved over the last several years, and to witness these initiatives come together, to come to fruition, to know and understand there's going to be at long last legislative reform in this country, that in regard to children and families and languages and all of those other things that Robert mentioned. It's an amazing feeling. And you sit there and you kind of smile inwardly, and you think, yeah, it's such a, it was a long struggle, but we managed to keep focus, and we managed to stay together in this room. And I think that's important. In spite of the differences that exist throughout this room, in British Columbia, we know that there are more important things than our differences. It's our commonalities, it's our love for the land, it's love for our families, it's that deep respect we hold for our elders and our knowledge keepers, and we bring that all together, and that wonderful energy is responsible for the progress. And I'm so greatly encouraged by the number of young people that keep coming into this room. And we heard the young lady sitting at our table the other day, and she come up here and she was really nervous. And I think everybody in this room realized she's already a leader. She was talking about, you know, I want to be a leader, I want to get involved, and, you know, she's already there. And all of the young people in this room, they're already there. You know, they're already contributed. Willie Sellers got amazing energy as a young chief. And we're seeing that transformation. And I speak from over 40 years of experience. And I have to tell you, after these 3 days, I was experiencing what you might call a Moses moment, knowing that the young people are going to take over the agenda, and they're going to move forward into our collective history with all of the work that's been accomplished. And I know there are a lot of veterans in this room that were part of that journey, part of the struggle, the heartbreak and the tears, and all of those things that are part of this struggle. And so I leave this gathering this year with a really good feeling, and I'm so proud of British Columbia. I always say that. When we were meeting with Minister O'Regan last night, I told him, I sat right across from him and I said, BC rocks. So I thank you all. I thank each and every one of you for all of your hard work, for your contributions, for your relentless energy, and for your love of everything that we stand for as Indigenous peoples. Why? Lim Lim.
Thank you so much, Grand Chief and Joan. You two are role models for so many of us in this room. And I'm 33, so maybe I can speak on behalf of youth and say that, you know, when you talked earlier about standing on the shoulders that have come before us, you're certainly making sure that we can be lifted up to achieve even more. So Gela Kesla to both of you. And to all of our speakers. Really, once again, thank you to all of the First Nations Leadership Council and the federal departments for co-hosting, for bringing us all together into this gathering. Let's put our hands together one more time for our co-host organizations. I have a few more thank yous now. Of course, I want to say thank you and express what a privilege it is for us to be able to gather here in Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh territories and to be greeted every morning in such a beautiful way, to be reminded of the history of these unceded lands. So a thank you to our territorial hosts. Let's put our hands together for them. A huge thank you to the staff members and volunteers, red shirts, purple shirts, yellow shirts, who have kept us organized and done so much background work to pull us all together. So to the staff members and volunteers, let's put our hands together. We also wish to thank the Naut'sa Tribal Council for their hard work organizing the registration, the travel claims. A couple quick housekeeping announcements on their behalf. Just a reminder that you can drop your name tags in the lovely basket or bin out there that's perfectly placed for your convenience. And a reminder that all the presentations will be emailed out to presenters and hosted on the Naut'sa website. So let's put our hands together for Naut'sa Tribal Council. We also wish to thank the hotel staff, and in particular our AV folks at the back of the room who've been working hard despite a few glitches, but making sure that we're well supported with our visual needs, even a last-minute photo request from the Grand Chief. And so you've done a wonderful job. Let's put our hands together for hotel staff and AV. And then finally, just a huge thank you once again to all of you, in particular those of you that presented or spoke on behalf of your communities or your organizations. We know that you put a lot of work into preparing your comments, preparing your materials to come and share your wisdom and your good stories with the rest of us. And so we thank you for your contributions. But yeah, just to everybody in this room for making the time to be here. So let's put our hands together one more time for presenters and delegates. My final housekeeping announcement of the day is just a reminder that Lost and Found is at the hotel registration, and there has been an iPhone 10 that was lost. I think those run about $1,000 or more, so might want to turn that in if you come across it. And also there's quite a bit of coffee left in the lunchroom, so if you need a bit of caffeine to fuel you before you head home or into a Friday or Thursday night in the big city, then please feel free to fuel up before you leave here. I want to thank my co-moderator Harold as well. It's always such a pleasure to be up here with him and with all of you, and hope that we see you again next year. And so just wish you all very safe travels home. Gela Kesla.
Thank you very much, Jesse. All I'll say just to wrap up is that while I'm not 33, I want to compliment the closing speakers from all the organizations, because having heard the story that you told of the gathering that we just had and that we were able to bear witness with, we can't help but feel young at heart. So thank you very much for that, and enjoy your trip home. We are adjourned. And it's 2:15.